This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. The following program is rated PG-13 and contains language and material that may be offensive to some audiences. He's back. Mark Gose, back for a return trip to the Havery Show. It's good to have you.
Good to be here.
Hey, man, we got a lot to talk about.
We do.
Where are we going to start today?
Oh boy.
Here, let me start here.
Okay.
I don't know if we can start here or not, but I guess we'll.
Wherever we start, we're gonna have rabbit trails. So
that's right.
We're good.
That's correct. There's been a lot of work done. All About Lawns has been going at it on the lakefront on 27.
Yeah.
So who hired them? Why are they doing it? And is it all tied into your long-term vision for the lake?
I wish. No, if you go on the GIS map at the county, you can see that some of the people across 27 own lakefront, little slivers of lakefront.
Yes.
And then the majority of it is owned by DOT.
Okay.
And probably DOT had hired them. I saw DOT trucks out there while they were there.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're they left, a bunch of, something here and here and here. And
is that because of the landowners?
Might be private land, yeah.
Wow. You would think
I don't know, though. Really.
You would think that the people that own those parcels would want to jump on this opportunity while there's crews down there to get their place cleaned up and cleared out. It really looks nice. I'm an all natural kind of guy. I like to see what God put there and leave it alone. But at the same time, man, is it pretty out there?
Yeah.
You can see the lake, you can see the water. It's really nice.
Really cool. And then the most of those plants are invasive.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah. They're not supposed to. They never were in the lake.
Okay.
So I don't know where they came from. But
well, that's good that they're getting rid of them.
Yeah, they got to get rid of them. Because the more that stuff dies and rots, it goes into the bottom of the lake. And that's why the lake bottom's like 4 or 5 in the deeper areas.
Yes.
It's like 4 or 5 feet of muck down there.
And that really shouldn't be there at all. It should be that nice, pretty sand.
Vegetation dying and falling into the water.
Are they going to do anything about that, do you think? Is that
the storms and stuff will take care of it itself. They remember how it used to be all cattails.
Oh yeah,
you couldn't even see the lake.
It's true.
And all that got pulled out. So I think the lake is healing itself.
Good.
So,
good.
Yeah, water in Lake Jackson is like crystal clear. It is so clear right now.
Yeah, I go down to the city pier for to take walks. Mm-hmm. And I marvel at it every time I go because I remember when I was a kid what a pigsty it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
But the way now the end of the pier itself, you could jump out and swim and everything, but the sides, people just threw their garbage out left and right. And do you remember that?
I don't remember.
It was rough. Yeah. It was really rough, and I think it was probably 30 years ago the city came along and really cleaned it up, and they've maintained it.
Yeah, it's cool walking out. I send a lot of people that come by for HGTV. I sent them down to and there's a beautiful beach down there. The beach is really nice. Then you can walk in the sand, and I tell people they can go get their feet wet, and they come back with their pants rolled up and stuff. And then I send people down there for the sunset because there's no better place in Highlands County to watch as well.
It's premier.
The people that live out in the pastures and stuff, they'll argue that point, and I agree, it's beautiful to watch sunsets out in Loretta and stuff.
Sure.
But it's still just nothing like Lake Jackson,
Yep, that would be my number 2. Lake Jackson over the pier, that's my number 1 sunset. But I do like to see a sunset over old pine trees, and long, flat earth with pine trees. That's a beautiful Florida thing for me.
Yep. A few cabbage trees sticking up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So can we talk about the lake and your vision for the lake? Or is that something we ought not talk about?
No, might as well.
You mentioned that to me a couple of months ago, and I was really intrigued by it.
Yeah.
So lay out the basic plan of your vision for Lake Jackson on 27.
If I'd have known, I'd have brought a printout of my rendering that I had done for it. But in a nutshell, to me, Lake Jackson's our biggest asset that we have in Sebring, and it's 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 seen every day by people that don't get to see a lake very often.
Yeah.
And they drive around the lake. And in my 45 years of building, the number one reason that I built for people that don't live here is Lake Jackson and them driving on 27. So that tells me that I know that's my biggest asset in our industry, because I'm not the only builder that's built for people that are here because they drove around 27 on Lake Jackson. So, I've always wanted to, when we were kids, we used to drive our Jeeps and stuff down there. We'd hang out down there. It was like that was our hangout.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember back in the day, there was this little island right off the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And me and a few people went around and stole a bunch of real estate signs and swam out there and stuck those real estate signs all in there. And then the very next night, this was before all the social media and all that, but the very next night, somebody swam a rocking chair out there and put a rocking chair right in the middle of the island. So it was just back in the day. It was we were just playing around, having fun.
Sure.
The real estate agents weren't too happy, but I don't even remember who they are, so y'all can't yell at me. But anyway, I always thought that we're not using the lakefront along there, and DOT owns some of it, and private people own some of it. So it'd be a property acquisition, deal that would have to make it all go down. So I come up with the idea of starting an access road, like on the intercoastal and on the causeways, over on the coast areas. They have access roads, and they, you can set tents up and stuff and have picnics and stuff and everything, swim with your kids and all that. So, I have a friend in Tennessee that I send all the aerials to, and he did a rendering. I'll get it to you so you can maybe show it on this, but he did a rendering on the roadway, and I kind of did it off of Fort Lauderdale Beach. And they have like a 25-foot concrete walkway, and it's winding and it's really cool. And then they got parking and stuff, So the idea was to do a north only access road.
Northbound only.
Northbound only. You get on at Sparta Road. You can get off or get on at Gulfview Drive, Harder Hall.
Yep.
You can get on or get off at Hammock Road, and then you exit out at the end of the road by Don Jose.
Okay, that was my big question. Is how are you going to manage two lanes on? So it's a northbound only.
Northbound only. Yeah,
makes total sense.
And it just takes all the struggle of traffic out of it. It keeps it a lot safer.
Sure, it does.
And those areas that were picked because they have stoplights, signal lights, and the DOT kind of made part of that fourth road in the intersection.
Right.
They kind of made it so it's already there. You just have to tie into that. But there's tons of challenges with it. So I called Dredge US, and got a price from them to dredge it all. I sent them my little sketch, and they just gave me a ballpark price. And so I started talking to some engineers and everything, trying to see, just could it be real? And then I know it can be real. It's just, where are we going to get the money?
That's right.
So anyway, long story short, the environmental people were giving me just not giving me pushback. They were telling me what's coming up, if I want to do this. So they said, what are you going to, how are you going to handle it? You're going to dredge a lake? And I was like, we can dredge a lake, but there's another option. And they're like, what's that option? I said, somebody dug a bunch of canals off Little Lake Jackson and made all that water go in and fill those canals. And that definitely wasn't how God had it planned. So I said, what if we just bring white sand in and fill back the same volume that was dug out of those canals? And I think I have all the calculations that how much water is in that canal, and how much water they drew out of the lake to fill those canals. And so I got all that stuff figured out. And so the environmental people said, well, that would put it back to where it was, technically as far as square footage of water,
Yes.
surface water. So, so they, that kind of helped, them feel better. And then we went, then I talked to some engineers, and one engineer, his name's Jack Breed. He was born and raised here and everything. And he's quite successful in the engineering business. But he said, okay, here's a big problem. What are you going to do with the bridge? And I said, yeah, I got that figured out. And he said, what are you going to do with it? And I said, we're one lane, right?
Yep.
We got a 20-foot walkway. So when we get to the bridge, we're going to build an old-fashioned wooden covered bridge.
Yeah.
And it'll really get the northern people excited because covered bridges are very popular up there. And it would have a big 20-foot walkway, all wood. Everything would be all wood. You hear cars driving over it, and it sound like a wood bridge. So I laid all that on him, and he just shaking his head and smiling. He said, "That'll do it." And so I got to that point, and it would be the longest. It'd be 1.9 miles. It'd be the longest freshwater beach in Florida.
No kidding.
Nobody else has a beach that long.
I'll be darned.
And the DOT owns it, and there's the DOT promised Sebring that when they got done 6-laning or redoing the highway, I don't know what phase it was, that they would restore the beach. Because I don't know if you remember, but it used to be pine trees, and picnic tables. You'd see under the pine trees out to the lake. It was beautiful. So DOT didn't do it because of the environmental impacts is what was, I don't know what went on back then, but that's as far as I got reading into it. But, that's something we just need to get DeSantis excited about and get him to fund it. And then we'll be good to go. But
so coming around Lakeview by Popeyes, you have the merge onto 27 where Sunset Grill is.
Mm-hmm.
Would you just stay right there? And would that be the first access? Or by the light, by the stoplight? It would just be a veer over. Now, would you go down to lake level with that, or would you have to build up the road to stay even with 27? What would you do with that?
That would be the first access. It would be a full intersection.
Yes.
So you'd stop at the light and turn right and go down and get on the access road.
So you would go down.
Yeah, you're gonna be a little lower than what the highway is. And then like that area from Sunset Grill over almost to the bridge is real deep water off the edge. So I pictured that being fishing piers going out there and decks and stuff where people can go out and fish and, put some fish attractors out there and stuff. And the decks or the docks are or piers, whatever you want to call them, they're going to draw the fish anyway, So that would be that area. And then when you can see the sticks sticking up out in the water, that's kind of where the beach area would start.
Got it.
Like right across from Tubbs Road, Marriott, and True Hotel. That would kind of be the first beach. And then I thought about getting the hotels involved and letting them have rentals and stuff out on the beach, them and on the lakes.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who owns property on that would have a good opportunity to have a rental or to have a hamburger stand or to have put bathrooms out there for pay or whatever.
Yeah,
that would be a good opportunity.
Bathrooms scattered out, It'd just be get an engineer that's done that to design it,
Yeah. I love the covered bridge idea, and I love building it structurally out of steel or whatever to make it really sound, but then using wood and then reclaimed wood. It would be cool to have antique reclaimed wood to build the structure.
We can make it look that way.
Yeah, well, you can. Sure. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be steel would be good, but it would, I guess steel would be better because it wouldn't need to be replaced.
Could you still make it look like a covered bridge that had steel skeleton to it?
Right.
I think.
No,
you're the builder.
Absolutely, we could.
I think this is a really intriguing idea. Now, this has been 2 months since you've mentioned this to me, and now every time I'm on 27, I'm looking over my shoulder, going north, and thinking, I wonder what that would be. I wonder what that would be. I wonder how this would look.
Yeah.
So what does your gut tell you? Do you think that you could really make this happen?
I don't know. It'd have to be a lot of people. It'd have to be a lot of people getting involved to pull it off.
Yeah.
It's versus you'd have a big white sand beach versus what we have now. And there's no access by vehicle
Right.
to that. You can walk down the sidewalk as far as you want to go, carrying all your stuff and set up on the shoreline. But it's going to be cool with all the boats over this summer are going to be anchored up out there
That's
because
right.
you can see them all now. They used to hide behind those bushes,
Yeah.
but they're gone now. But yeah, right now it looks better than it's looked in a long time.
It really, really does.
Pretty exciting to see it. You get more of a vision of what I'm, talking about. But
Yeah. This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
And I talked to CRA, and we believe that we can take that section road from Sunset Grill to Don Jose's approximately.
Yes.
We got a feeling that we can make all that CRA because the lake would be the contiguous, or what do you call it?
Yeah, contiguous.
Contiguous body that would
Yep.
that would pull the CRA out there to the side of the road.
So
that would give us more strength to have the CRA on the, wanting to do that as well.
absolutely. And along those lines, I'm sure you've already thought of this, but several years ago, there was a fairly detailed waterfront plan for the City Pier, Jack Stroop, the Civic Center. They were going to tear down some buildings. They were going to put splash pad out there. They were going to make a little water park. Maybe your area.
They could do it along the highway.
That would be that would be an ideal place to do that.
And then everybody would be looking at that going by, it'd just be real. Because when you're on the causeways, you're always looking over it to see what people are doing,
Definitely.
And they're all setting up. They got barbecue grills going and everything,
That would kill two birds with one stone, in that the people that were upset about disrupting, the City Pier and that whole look and that whole history of it, there are some folks that are very upset about that. This would satisfy that and really put it in a great location on the highway.
Yep, that would work.
I think it would work.
That'd be cool.
And they were talking about, at one point, I don't know if this is gospel truth, but I had heard that the Blackmans were talking about having a shuttle service across the lake from Harder Hall to roughly around the City Pier.
Downtown, yeah.
Yeah, so that would also be a really cool thing.
And everybody could benefit from that shuttle service. I think that'd be really cool if we could pull that off.
Water shuttle, that would be great.
Yeah.
And then it gives you an opportunity, or an investor or a businessman, entrepreneur, or whatever, to have water shuttles that just, or water taxis that just do
that'd be cool.
pleasure cruises, just around the lake, hop on, hop off.
You know how many people, excuse me, that live in this town that have never been on a boat in that lake?
So many.
A bunch.
Probably
many. More than half.
I would say that's about right. Then you have another opportunity, and I don't know how this would work with the vessel size, but you could have a vessel that was big enough to have 100 people, 75 people, and have dinner cruises.
Yeah.
Now, how fun would that be?
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. Sunset cruises, dinner cruises, lunch cruises. And that's, from my work in New York, I used to do these themed cruises for lunches and stuff. Man, they were popular. Music and food and water, that's a good combination.
Yeah, that's very good. Sunset is good. And then, like, to have concerts, like you had mentioned, doing a concert on the lake or something.
Dying to do that on the pier.
Would be,
dying to put the band out on the pier and do a boat concert.
And just have everybody all anchored up out there and watching what's going. That'd be awesome.
Dying to do that. Been wanting to do that for years.
Yeah, we need to figure that. That'd be easy to figure out. I
think it would.
It's a little easier than a 1.9 mile road. And,
that's
an environmental place. But,
that's a little tricky, but doable. I mean, everything that's any good started off as a dream.
Yeah, it did. It sure did.
You're definitely a dreamer.
Yeah, I try here and there. So are you.
Sometimes it gets the best of me, and sometimes
Yeah.
I ought not be dreaming so much.
Yeah. Heck, it's fun, man. You stop dreaming, you stop living.
Yep. What do you want to talk about? What's on your mind?
Just last time we talked about the Sebring golf course.
Yes.
I don't know if anything's changed.
Well, they had the workshop since we talked, and basically it appears that the Blackmans they want an answer. They want an answer so they can move this way or move this way. And if they get the golf course, you know all this, but I'm saying it for the benefit of the listeners. If they get the golf course property and if they get the Caddy Shack property, they're going to continue on with the resort. If they don't get it, they're going to shift and go hotel.
Okay.
So you knew this, but apparently it has to do with the building materials. It has to do with the quality of work. It has to do with the overall goal for the building.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. If you're going to make it a motel or a hotel, you build it a lot different than if you were going to build a resort.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be a resort and you want that resort feel, then you're going to have to upgrade the finishes way above a regular hotel.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
An interesting idea was not presented to me, but I heard about it yesterday. The city owns the old junior women's club across from Veterans Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a what if that was thrown out there. What if Caddy Shack moved over to the old junior women's club? What if the city worked out a deal with them where they didn't pay rent for X number of years in exchange for them turning it into the restaurant that they want it to be? And then that would free up Caddy Shack for the Blackmans to do whatever they wanted to do for their resort. What do you think of that? You think that the old women's club would make a good restaurant? Is it big enough?
It'd just be. It would just. I don't know if it's big enough. But I remember when they moved that thing from where the tennis courts are behind the city hall. They moved that building out there. Did you know that?
Let's talk about that. The tennis courts by City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
I was under the impression, and maybe there's a Mandela effect or something, and I'm remembering wrong. But the brick building that's there now, that was the Bridge Club behind the tennis courts.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I remembered that being over at St. Catherine's.
You're right. I got that messed up.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I totally messed that up. Yeah, that building got moved. They're similar in architecture, yeah.
But am I right on that?
I think you are.
Because I'm questioning myself now, but I seem to remember that building being the social hall at St. Catherine's.
I remember it being moved there because now that I think about it, we poured all the sidewalks and everything for it once they had it placed.
How do you move a brick building like that? I mean, you got to get under it with girders. How do you lift it?
Just dig and put beams and raise it up.
How though? How do you raise it up?
You just dig big holes and shove beams under it and jack the beams up and get it up where you put wheels under it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Really.
People move some crazy stuff.
I remember, it seems like when I was a kid, it wasn't that unusual to see houses getting moved.
Yeah.
And now I haven't seen it. And I don't even remember how long ago.
Yeah. Most of those were wood houses too.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they're built above ground anyway here in Florida.
Yeah.
They're built on, raised bricks.
Raised, yeah.
Yeah.
Space.
So back to the Junior Women's Club. Do you think that would make a suitable restaurant?
It could. The only thing I would question is parking, especially like on in the summertime, generally on weekends, and then holidays and stuff. All the boats and stuff. There's nowhere near enough room to put everybody's cars and trailers and stuff like that.
Okay. So they're using that for overflow parking at this point. Is that
they
right?
Park all over that place. Yeah.
Huh.
That would be a challenge.
Okay.
I think. And just taking an old building like that and having to cut the floor out and get all your plumbing and stuff. Right. It'd probably be less expensive just to build new.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I always like what ifs. I like when somebody throws an idea out there and says, "What if we do that?" That always excites me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the golf course lately? What's your pulse?
I don't. Apparently the Blackmans don't. If they got control of it, they wouldn't keep Caddy Shack. Is that?
I don't know that that's gospel truth.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I just saw on Facebook a couple of days ago, there's a petition going around about saving Caddy Shack. I appreciate people's sentiment and heart. I don't know how effective that is, or if that I don't know how that would work out. It's a sticky situation.
Yeah, it's tough. That guy, Caddyshack, people have worked hard to build what they have. You know,
Was it 18 years or something like that?
They got a great place.
Yeah, yeah. They've established a brand there that people really love. I'm one of those guys. I want an everybody wins situation.
Mm-hmm.
I want the city to win. I want Caddyshack to win. I want Blackman's to win. I want everybody to come out with a piece of the pie that they're happy with.
A good deal is a good deal for
that's
everybody.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know how that works with that. That's a complicated one.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
No. It can be done.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Had lunch or dinner with a friend a couple weeks ago, and your name came up.
Oh boy. Can't wait.
I'm gonna be careful about how am I gonna even say this without mentioning names. Well, over at this is years ago. All right, and this is maybe 40 years ago.
Wow.
And you got hired to pour some concrete at a house over by Hickory Street, behind the baseball field, around that area. It's Martin Mackey's house.
Okay.
I believe that you got hired, if I'm not mistaken, to pour the concrete for his man cave.
Yeah. I know. We worked on his house several times, and I don't remember that specifically. But
and you had somebody come in and do the work, for you, one of your employees, who is a well-respected person in this area, and you told him, "Listen, these guys are going to want you to drink with them. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're not going to be able to hang with these guys. They're going to get you in trouble." And we're talking about Puds, and we're talking about those guys.
Yeah.
And apparently he didn't listen because you had to bail him out. I'm not going to air this.
No.
So it was Puds, and it was
Yeah.
apparently got hammered after he was pouring concrete because of Puds and the Mackey brothers and all that whole crew.
Yeah. Oops.
Do you remember that at all?
I don't. I remember the whole thing, but I don't remember. I hung out with those guys a lot. So for the rambling rafting regatta.
Oh yeah, the wild and wacky rafting regatta. All right, so we're back, and that's I didn't tell the story. I'm not going to name names. I'm just not. But there's some good stories.
Yeah,
there's some good stories. But you did mention the wild and wacky rafting regatta. Mm-hmm. Yeah, did you participate in that?
Every year.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Did you ever win?
We participated, but we didn't have a boat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
We'd go out with Pudsey. He was a dock builder, and we'd go out with his big barge, and we'd crank the corners down in and lift that barge up out of there. We had barbecue grill and everything.
Oh, yeah.
The roof over it, and they had to come right by us.
Yes.
It was yeah.
Oh, you said Puds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he knew how to throw a party.
He sure did. He was wild man.
Wild man is an understatement. So who are some of when you think about the wild and wacky rafting regatta, I think about Rooter. Mm-hmm. I think about the bed races that they used to have. Do you remember the bed races?
Yeah.
So who are some of the people that come to mind when you think about those days?
Jeez. Trying to remember who was always putting a raft in there. I know Dan Feathers and Dan Andrews and a bunch of those guys did it because the raft is still up in, or was last time when Dan sold his building to Jeff.
Yeah.
The one of his rafts that was in there was up in the ceiling.
No kidding.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But man, I hardly even remember all that stuff. That was way back. That was when Jimmy Ghost was alive. Plunkett,
Yes,
just like
yes.
all that whole jet, all that.
Yeah, McGruff's, the whole crew,
whole bunch of guys.
Martin and Joe,
and
the brothers.
Yeah, and all man, there were so many. Jack Pollard,
Yep,
all those guys. Yeah, they were party central.
That's a crew. And McGruff's is, I don't know if they're still doing the races or not, but they're legendary. Are they still doing the races?
Yep.
And Martin with his yard art.
Yeah.
That has become something else.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It really is crazy. And
you walk inside that barn, he's got more stuff in there. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love what he does, and I love that house has kind of become a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people who know about it, and if you know, you know to go visit that house and take pictures and stuff. I think it's really, really cool what he's done with that.
It's really cool, and he changes it up here and there.
Yes, he does. It's holidays, and it's cool.
From mannequins to airplanes.
You never know.
Where do you get this stuff?
You never know what you're going to see out there. I think it's fantastic. It adds a little kind of charm. It adds charm to Sebring.
It does. It's cool.
I'd like more people to know about it, but at the same time, you don't want to bring a bunch of traffic to that neighborhood. People probably wouldn't appreciate it very much. This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. I think about that. I think about the old baseball field, which is the baseball field, but those old pine trees, those Australian pines.
Outside of the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, and the wooden bleachers.
Yeah.
And there was just a sound that when the Blue Streaks were on a roll and things were going good or they needed excitement, everybody would stomp their feet.
I remember that.
Nothing sounded like a huge group of people stomping their feet on wooden bleachers.
Yeah.
And it was cool how they had the concession stand. You had to go down the bleachers and then go down another level to get to the concession stand, which was kind of cool too.
I remember that, yeah. I remember Mr. Crenshaw.
Harold Crenshaw, the voice of the Blue Streaks.
Yeah, he was always there, and he'd park his van right up at the staircase right there. And Mike Crenshaw and I would sit on the roof of his van and watch a game. It was the best place to watch it.
Yeah, he's legendary. And it's funny now, we got Michael Waldron, who's
That's cool.
the voice of the Blue Streaks for a whole different generation. But
he's the voice of the Raceway.
That's right.
That's big time.
Yeah, that's right.
It's hard. I mean, people all over the world hear his voice.
It's true. It's absolutely right.
He's got it going on out there. I love it.
He's got a great broadcast voice.
Yeah. I'd be sitting on my porch listening to the game. And I'd be texting Mike Walter, and I'd be texting him, and I know he's sitting in the booth, And so I'm texting him, and then he says, I want to give a big shout out to Mark Gose sitting on his front porch. This is the game.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, Sebring's been a great place to grow up and to raise family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm
just a really cool place.
Yeah.
Very cool.
What about I don't know that we talked about this last time you were here, but what about did we talk about teachers and teachers that were special to you?
Yeah, I got a story that happened yesterday.
Oh, all right.
I was walking by the Gavigans, and one of our bartenders come out, TJ, and he said, hey, come here. He said, what are you doing right now? And I said, I got to go up to the hotel real quick. I said, what's up? And he said, one of your teachers from 6th grade is in here having lunch, and he saw you walking by, and he wants to talk to you. So I'm like, wow. So I said, okay, I'll be right back. And I went up to do what I had to do, and I walk in, and it was Gordon Rose.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he's
Gordon? Really?
Gordon Rose, yeah. And he came, Gene Mosier and all those ladies had a book club.
Yeah.
And when Gene passed away, Marty and Molly kind of took it over.
That's right.
And they put it together. Well, they came and asked us if we could. They were reading Tom McGuire, and Tom McGuire is he's a World War II flying ace, and he lived in Sebring. We didn't talk about this last time, did we?
No.
Okay. So they wanted to have a book party. So Marty Brooker and Molly Stevens called me and said, hey, can we do that upstairs in the lounge? And I'm like, heck yeah. So we got it all set up and everything, and Gordon Rose is the expert on Thomas McGuire.
Really?
So Gordon came to verbally present the book to these ladies, and they had to have this book read by the day before they came in there, And there was 34 of them, 34 ladies that are the who's who in Dallas County.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun just seeing them all and bringing them all up there and talking to them and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then Gordon got up and made a big presentation, but he was there for that, and he came and he left, And so and we made our baker Lady Taylor. She got a book cake mold and made a big, huge book cake, and it was like open, and it was
Nice.
Thomas McGuire's book that they had all read. So everybody got to cut up the book and have dessert, But so I went down and got Gordon and talked to him, and he said, there's just one request. I was up there, and I didn't get to see the rooms. Can I go see him? And I said, man, it's perfect. Yes. So I took him and his friend up there, and we toured the whole hotel, and he was freaking out. He was like, I cannot believe this is in Sebring. And he was just going on, and then we reminisced the whole time through it, It was just really cool. That was because he was, and then when I got out of school, I started my business when I was 21, and he was in the installation business.
Yes.
And so he started doing all my work. So we worked together. He was my 6th grade teacher, but then we worked together, as when I became an adult.
I haven't seen him in years. Does he look the same? Does
Exactly,
he still have the...
exactly the same. Not one thing different.
I'll be darned.
Except he's a little slow, like all of us. When you stand up, you got to get walking, loosen up a little bit. But we had so much fun yesterday. It was tons of fun.
And that's great. I haven't thought of that name in a long time. He was at every sporting event.
Every one of them. Everyone. He lived at those ball fields.
Yes, he did.
Sure did.
Yeah.
But a lot of dads did.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the grease smoke, he'd park his Chiefs car right behind the dugout at Max Lawn or at
Marge Skipper.
Marge Skipper.
Yeah.
And all the dads, they would umpire and stuff, and it was just way different back in that day,
Sure.
I'm sure there was bickering going on between the parents, but we never heard it and didn't care,
Yeah, back then it was just more recreational, and kids played because they loved to play.
Yeah.
There wasn't travel ball, and there wasn't all this other stuff, and it's even at the lowest level, sports have become so corporate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And it's not just go out and play anymore.
I remember we left Marge Skipper and went to the high school, getting in 9th grade, going out for baseball.
Yeah.
That was the biggest field I'd ever seen in my life. And I was like wondering if I could throw the ball from the pitcher's mound to the catcher,
Yeah.
It's just that's the difference in those little league fields. But there's a lot of kids playing ball right now, a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all just fun. I remember parades. We'd go up, and we were Sebring Paint Center. Remember Mr. Holmes?
Yep.
Ken Holmes'
Ken
wife?
Holmes, yeah.
Don?
Yeah, Don
Holmes.
Yeah.
He had the paint store, and he would always sponsor our team. And Plunkett and Marty Repstorff and Jimmy Ghost, they were our coaches.
Yep.
And it was really cool because all the businesses were in downtown then.
Yeah,
they were right down Ridgewood Drive and some off the different spokes. But you go out to the ball field, and all the teams were named after the businesses because there was no other there was no other town in Sebring, except that main drag in the circle. Those days were great.
They were great. And Sebring Paint, they also sold art supplies.
Yeah, they did.
And I was very young when I was into art. And I was into art for a number of years from the time I was like 6 or 7, 5, 6, 7, until, maybe my early teen years. Then I got into music. But Sebring Paint Store, if my mom went there to get paint, or if I needed supplies or something like that, I could ride my bike over there, and they had.
Yeah, that went too far.
I'm incriminating myself now, but as a kid, I would go look for art supplies, but they had instructional books on how to paint, and one of the books was how to paint nudes.
Nudes?
Nudes.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and I stumbled upon it, and is anybody looking? Is anybody looking? You know, and I grabbed it, and they're watercolor paintings of naked ladies.
Oh boy. I can't believe he got away with that.
Or,
yeah.
yeah. But you know, I think because of my upstanding reputation as a clean young good boy, I would never have thought that I would look at that filth. But it wasn't filth; it was an art book. For God's sake, it was an art book on how to paint the human figure.
What year was that?
Oh, gee whiz, that would have been 76, 76, 76, 77, give or take, 78, right around there.
See, they had the nudie books back then.
Yeah, and they were. It was legit because it was art.
Yeah. That's cool.
Oh yeah, when you
remember his little art section when you go in. Yeah, when you went in,
you walk. It was right to the right. Yeah. All the paint displays were all around on the left, and that used to be if I'm correct, it was a Studebaker dealership.
Really?
Yeah, and I believe they've stripped off the paint where you can see Studebaker on there, even right now. Huh. And then it was Terry's junk store. When Terry moved from the freight depot, his junk store used to be in the freight depot. And then when they redid the Parkway, he moved over to that place. Yeah. I used to love bringing my kids in there just to go looking at all the junk. And he would always give my kids something.
Something, yeah.
Once it was this hammer with a yellow handle. The claw was broken off, and it was bent. Mm-hmm. My son Rodney thought that was the best thing in the world. He took it home and he tied a string to it, and he would go fishing off the back of the couch, and that was his fishing pole.
Imagination.
Terry was a really good guy.
Yeah.
Do you remember him at all?
I was on that. This is gonna tell something, but that was around early 80s, 81, 83, 2, 3, 4.
He had the junk store in the 80s, but he had moved it over. He had moved it over to that other building in the 90s.
So I was on the CRA when we had to start taking land.
Yes.
And there was 3 politicians on a 5-person board. So it was none of them would ever make a motion. And because they wanted votes and they didn't want to rock the cart, in which I don't blame them, but there was only 2 of us that weren't politicians on the board. So I remember making the motion. He was in there and he was mad about the train station, about taking that away from him. And he was like really mad about it. And I felt really, really sorry for the guy. And he's a nice guy, but he was just so mad. And I was the only one. Everybody's looking at me in this meeting, and he's sitting at a table right there. It's like we were all packed in a little room at City Hall. And I said, okay, I make a motion. We take the land where that used to be eucalyptus. Well, it was Eucalyptus Street, but it used to be the railroad track, and that was where the train station.
That's right.
But Eileen Fields was in there wanting to move it, and so was Mrs. Vickers, I think. Mm-hmm. So I climbed up underneath there and took pictures of everything, and then I had to go take them and get them developed before I could show them to anybody. But in the termites had just eaten that thing. It was you couldn't move it. It was too brittle. There was just no way. And they fought it and spent a lot of money trying to get it moved. And then it just come right down to it when the engineers got involved was you can't. It's going to fall apart. So I made the motion to take his land. And then the other non-politician made the second. And then it went to a vote, and it was unanimous. So I knew I was going to have to see him in the hallway after this, and I knew I just knew I was in trouble, and I felt sorry for the man, and emotions were crazy, and I was a kid. I was 20. Well, yeah, I was young. So I walked outside, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I think I cleared him because he's behind me. And I hear somebody go, "Hey, Gose." And everybody in the hallway just froze. And I'm like, oof, oof. So I turned around and I was like, yes, sir. And he said, and I can't say what he said, but he said, I'm glad that somebody in this building's got big enough blanks to make a decision and get something done.
Oh, wow.
And he came up and put his arm around me and we walked out.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was petrified. I swear. When I was leaving, I almost broke into a sprint trying to get out of there. But
he was a big guy too.
He was a real big man.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was older when I knew him, but he was still a big guy, and he's not the kind of guy you want to mess with, not at all.
But I liked him. I'd go by there and I talked to him about his building, and then we worked a deal with the old Sebring paint store to get him in there. But yeah, it all worked out.
This episode of The Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020. Yeah, that was back. You had three paint stores back then. You had Sebring Paint Store, and I believe you had Porter Paints.
Oh, yeah.
You had Sherwin-Williams, where Maylee's is now.
Yeah, and then you had John Sincarrick Glass
and Paint. That's right.
That is just south of Chinook's Corner or whatever it is, or north of Chinook's Corner. Yeah.
Yep. And you had Central Builders Supply.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard now to remember because of the parkway. You're driving right on the railroad track. It's kind of hard to remember
where
how it looked when you went down Eucalyptus and there was the gully and there was the tracks and everything. That was a cool thing.
Yeah, and that railroad track was built up on such a big mound and all. And when I got the old Dickie Smith or Dickie's dad, where he had the tile and terrazzo.
Yes.
I bought that. Me and my Uncle Jimmy bought it together and made that in my office. But you could see right across the street. That's where the train depot was, right across from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the car wash, the car wash was there. It was a Phillips 66 car wash or something that was there. We've talked about this on other podcasts, but behind that there was a skating ring. Yeah.
Sure was.
Yeah. And that's when I think Thriftway might have been brand new or was I don't know if it was there yet when the skating rink was there, but Thriftway had some great donuts, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Thriftway was there.
Yeah, that was the place to get your bakery stuff.
Yeah.
And over by the Baptist Church, you remember Quick Check.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was Winn-Dixie. It was Quick Check.
We used to go deer hunting and take I think McClellan worked at Thriftway.
Yep.
And we'd take it to the back door and he'd clean it up for us.
No kidding. Yeah.
If you did that now, you'd probably all go to jail for contamination or something.
Rodney Hollinger told me once about going into the dumpster behind there and pulling out a cow tongue. I've never really seen one. Apparently, they're huge.
Jeez.
Yeah, and he put it in the teacher's desk.
Oh, boy.
Or on the teacher's desk or something. Yeah, Rodney, for all of his goodness, he was a bit of a rascal too at times.
Yeah, he was my civics teacher.
Yeah,
in ninth grade.
Yeah, before he went to administrate. Well, he went to counseling, guidance counseling first.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, and he the very first day we had class, I got to tell his wife this story the other day. I saw her in 301, and so I got to tell her. But he started at, there was 30 kids in classrooms back in that day.
That's right.
And he'd start at the first row, and he'd go down the first row, and whoever was in the chair, he said, "Tell me something, anything." And they'd tell him, like, blue hat. And then he'd go to the next person. And he went all the way around the class, back and forth. And then he started teaching civics, and we're all like, what's this all about? And so he's telling us what to expect, in this thing. And he said, we got about 3 minutes before class ends. And he walked back down the row and he said everything every one of the people said in every chair and didn't miss one of them. And that man got all our respect incredibly like that fast. And we we studied in his class. Because we were like, this guy's like really, really cool, and he could play basketball.
Yeah.
That was kind of a plus. But I just never forget that was the coolest. That was the coolest teacher beginning I've ever had.
Yeah.
It was really, really neat.
That's remarkable. Well, he is a remarkable guy. He was pretty young too.
He was really
as a first year teacher. He was
in his early 20s.
Yeah, he would have been. Yeah, and a great ball player.
Oh boy.
Yeah, a great athlete in general.
Yeah.
What always got me is I don't know how he did it, but we'd go play basketball, and there was a whole group of guys that would meet at Sebring Middle School at the gym, and we'd play. And if I had a second, I could name them off, and you'd know who they were. But Rodney wore these thick glasses, but when he played ball, he would take those things off, and I don't even know how he saw the rim because I have to wear glasses too.
Yeah.
And if I don't have my glasses on, it's tough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my vision's way better than his was. So I don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
And he had perfect pitch. So
Did he really?
So you could say hum a B flat and he could hum a B flat. You could say hum an F sharp and he'd hum an F sharp. You could play a note and he'd tell you what it was.
Whoa.
And he was extremely talented. He could play piano, he could play keyboards, organ, he could play guitar, he could play bass, saxophone, trumpet. He played all these instruments.
He's amazing.
He really was. I miss that guy.
Amazing. Me too.
I miss him a lot.
I never got to hang out with him in my older age, but our churches played basketball against each other, and I think he was at Bible Fellowship with Bankston, and Bankston could play. All those guys
Bankston could play, and
they had to play them anymore because they kept beating us every time we'd play them.
They were a really good team, and they had Tom Knowles on there for a while.
Yeah, he's good.
I played. I don't know if I ever played against you. I played church league it's like 84, 85, 86 around in there for St. Catherine's.
Yeah. Pat Dell was on our team. He was like our all-star guy playing.
We had Fred Layton, and we had Jerome Kajabowski, and we had Peter. My brother Peter played. My brother Vinny played. He played one season. That was
it.
Rich Banco was on our team. The Roberts. I think we had a couple Roberts brothers. Maybe Steve. I don't know if Kevin played or not. But yeah, that was fun. There was one. I've told this story on the podcast before too. But sue me. There was a time we were playing. We used to play at the Christian school in the gym, and then there was another season we played out at the Y in the outdoor courts. And at that time, I was playing for Bible Fellowship, and that was many years later. And Eugene was still playing, and he was on the team and very competitive.
He was very competitive.
And Kim Crawford was the director of the YMCA back then. And she's the volleyball coach. I think she's still the volleyball coach at SFSC. And I don't remember who we were playing against, but it was very competitive to the point of becoming heated. And she warned us a couple times. Guys, you're on thin ice. You're on thin ice. You need to tone it down. And so finally, I don't know what happened, but she said, "That's it. You're all gone." And she threw everybody off the court, including the pastor.
He would get feisty.
He would get feisty.
I mean, we were bumping each other. I was always guarding him, and he was always guarding me. And man, we were physical. I was like, I don't care if he's a pastor or not.
No, he wouldn't want you to. He wouldn't want you to play soft on him. He would be extremely
soft.
Oh, he was also a great athlete in general, and he was one of the guys who played for Coach Tavernier. And
really?
yeah. And I remember seeing pictures in the breezeway of the gym, and there's pictures of him. There's all these big guys, and there's Eugene.
Yeah,
but he got to play on that team. I don't know how much he played, but yeah. This episode of the Havery Show is being brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.
I got a Vinny story.
Okay.
Vinny had a white VW, and we were all. This is how smart we were, but we all is kind of back in the day that you like dropped your clothes and ran through things that were happening.
You were streakers.
Streakers, we did the Mike Fitch was one of the streakers, and we streaked across the shuffleboard courts while the lights were on and all the old people were shuffleboarding. So we streaked right down through the middle, but we didn't know there was a cable at the end of that, and Mike Fitch hit the cable and face planted, and we're like, oh boy. So that was one route, and then the other route was Doug McLean's building used to be the police department.
That's right.
And there was no air conditioning in there. So who's the man that he went to my church, Faith Lutheran? He was the dispatcher. He had a limp. He was.
Yep. I know. I can see him in my head.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Man,
his
I haven't
name.
thought about him in years, too.
He's a cool dude. So we all bust through the front door of the police department, and he's sitting in his dispatch desk, and we like waving at him, and we all have masks on, and he just closed his eyes and shook his head. We went right through the back, so that was a feather in our cap to streak the police station. So then we got this wild idea that it was during season when all the rich Jewish people were in Sebring staying at Harder Hall.
Yep.
And so we're streaking Harder Hall. So the front door of Harder Hall was real grandiose, And then when you walked in, you remember that big round bench that had plants and stuff growing out of the middle of it. And then there was a balcony on the top. Yep. So we all said, okay, we're going to run in. We're going to run all the way around the bench, and we're going to go all the way around the bench and then out the back door. Well, just to give you the perspective, I think there was 6 of us, and Vinny was the getaway car. he had a Volkswagen.
6 of you in the Volkswagen Beetle.
So everybody was waiting, and I was like, screw it, and I took off running, and then everybody else took off running, and I went all the way around the bench, and when I got back to the front door, they were going straight out the back door. They didn't do the circle of bench because all these security guards are running at us from 2 sides. And so I'm coming around the bench, and so I went from first to last like that fast. And I just had to kick it in because the walls were closing in, and I felt them grab me, and I just blew right on through it, went out the back door, and we're all running across the driving range. Yep. And Vinny was up by the arches in his Volkswagen. Yes. And remember how many sandspurs were?
Oh,
I think was
absolutely
sandspurs, and people were falling and. So we got out to Gulfview, and then Vinny had all the windows open, and everybody, there's 6 set of legs sticking out of this Volkswagen. And we're going out on 27, and we're hauling butt down 27 to try to outrun the cops. But anyway, that's my Vinny story.
So you guys, did you do it the right way? Did you go full streaking?
Full streaking.
All right.
Yeah.
That was the thing back then.
Except we did prepare for we wore shoes because of the sandspurs, so we had to go on our escape route, But yeah, that was fun back in the day.
Yeah, they even had a song. Remember the song?
Yeah.
The Streak?
Yeah. They call them the Streak. Used to sing on 2 feet. I was fast that night. I think I was the first one to the car. I was the last one out of the building. Yeah. This was my brother, and I can't even remember who all was with us.
There's an addition to that story.
Oh boy.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is right and maybe it's wrong, but a source, an unnamed source that may or may not have been driving the getaway car, said to me, and I think I'm right about this, that somebody's wallet fell out of the car during all the commotion of
it. Probably, yeah.
And they were really concerned that was going to be, because you guys wore masks.
Yeah.
But there probably weren't a lot of white VW Beetles in Sebring either. And Vinny,
there wasn't.
Vinny, it's not like Vinny was, a wallflower, quiet guy. He was the president of the student body. He's in the newspaper every other week, getting his hair cut for this or doing this, or he's in a play. That was pretty stupid of him to use his car as the getaway car. And he was not a stupid man.
No. But we didn't have anything calculated right that night. It just It was not good.
Holy
We got away, but that was all. That was the only good thing about it.
Harder Hall was a cool place. I was playing in there during the last owner in the cabaret room. You know, it was the place off to the side, and it had the sunken area, and it had the raised area around the edge.
Still there.
Yeah. And I used to like taking a break. Back then, I used to take breaks when I used to say no. So I used to like taking a break and just go roaming around Harder Hall, and checking things out. And I just remember going upstairs and looking down this one hallway, and all I could think about was the part in the movie The Shining when you see that hallway.
Oh, boy, yeah.
And there was two. There's one with those the little girls. Come play with us, And then where the blood comes pouring out of the walls, and I just got this eerie feeling there. And you know about the Spoon Sisters, you know about the legends and the ghosts of that place.
Yeah.
So it was a cool place, and it's really hard to believe that it's been shut down since I think 85 or 86.
So long ago. Because I remember we used to the boys a lot of the parents that came there, their kids would go there in the summertime while the parents were gone, and they'd send them to camp. And Breakstone Cottage Cheese, there was that type of people from South Florida, and they were all just richer than they could possibly be. And we weren't rich at all. We were in bad shape back in the day. But we lived in a house across the Lake Jackson. We made friends with these guys, and we'd be golfing, and they'd want to come hang out with us because they got tired of doing all the camp things. And we started having them come to our house and eat, and they really loved the family.
Yeah.
Like everybody sitting down at the dining room table. My dad was out of the picture at that time, but my mom and everybody. I don't know if my dad was or not. Anyway, but my mom. It was just a family meal, and they could not believe. And it was Hamburger Helper.
Sure.
But they chowed down on it. They loved it. They had never even heard of it before. But yeah, it's cool interacting with two totally different, financial situations or whatever. But they were cool. So we made a lot of buddies over there.
We used to go there for tennis practice for the high school.
That's
where and Hollinger was the tennis coach.
Yeah.
He was my tennis coach.
Right next to that big bamboo stand that is right there.
That's right. And we'd be out there practicing, and he would. I just remember him. He had this thing: if the ball bounced twice before I hit it, if I couldn't get to it fast enough. Judas friggin' Priest, Harvey, this isn't wheelchair tennis. A couple times he drove me back to the house on the motorcycle. Of course, my mom would just have a conniption that I was on a motorcycle. He'd never mind that it was Rodney Hollinger, the most careful guy in the world. But yeah, just the fact that I was on a motorcycle, she'd have just lose her mind. But of course, I would do it again. Yeah.
I remember the high school, they were always playing there. Because I'd always drive by there to go to my house. But
yeah, that's where they had their meets, matches, I guess. I never got to. I was on the tennis team 2 years, and I never got to play a match. I only got to practice. The first year, my mom decided that we needed to go to New York and visit Auntie Pat, a.k.a. her boyfriend, who lived 45 minutes away from Auntie Pat. So whenever we needed to go see Auntie Pat, it was really about going to see art, and she'd dump us off at Auntie Pat's. And so she dumped us off, and I was going to miss, I think, a couple of matches. And Rodney said, "No, you're either all in or you're all out."
Wow.
So he was hard, about stuff like that. Second year, all set to go, not going to go to New York, and all practiced up, and then report cards came out, and I flunked off, and so I didn't get to play tennis 2 years in a row. and that would have been my only sport.
Back in that day, D average was all you needed to play sports, right? That was ours anyway.
Yeah, well, I had flunked enough classes during that particular semester, and I wasn't a stupid kid. I just goofed off too much. I just didn't have any interest in getting grades. There's too many other important things than to worry about my grades. And my mom didn't care because I was playing music all the time.
Yeah.
And she knew this, this is a sad thing, but she knew I was never going to go to college because she was a very anti-college person because she didn't go. Nobody, her mom and dad didn't go. But she just knew that we were all going to just be in the workforce because that's what she wanted for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she kind of projected that on us.
Yeah.
Peter was the only one that broke loose and actually went to college and got a degree and everything. But, it was always music. You're going to do music. You don't need to have good grades. You're going to do music. You're not going to go to college. So you don't worry about your grades. I often wish that as hard as she encouraged me in the music, that she would have pushed me a little bit harder, in the grades and the schoolwork department, because she didn't give a rat's ass about my grades.
Yeah, my mom did. I just wanted to play sports, so I just did what I had to do to get a great average so I could play.
Yeah. Man, we've been over an hour. Can you believe that?
This is fun.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you came back.
Fun stuff. Yes, sir.
Next time you come back, I've got newspaper things that I need to show you.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave it at that. But next time, I'll have props. And if you want to send me drawings
I'll send
between now and then, it's going to be 2 weeks before you're on.
Okay.
I've got 2 in line ahead of you.
Okay. I'll do it.
Got Doug Walls coming up.
Did you really? Okay. Cool.
Which will already have been passed. And the one after that, I just last week had Paul Antone Cahagas, the Tokyo Monster, the wrestler.
Oh, really?
And
wow,
Howie Godwin.
No way.
Yeah, they were tag teaming.
Oh, wow, how cool was that?
Yeah, so that was a cool one. That's good.
You did Tiffany. I haven't heard that one yet.
Tiffany has jumped up to second place in the ratings.
Really?
Yeah, she's right behind Robert Shannon.
Oh, wow.
So Robert Shannon's got the top spot. Tiffany's got the second spot. Yeah, it's
cool.
pretty cool.
That's cool.
But man, I appreciate you, and it's good having you back.
All right, good to be here.
We'll do it again.
All right.
The Havery Show has been brought to you by Heartland Tax and Accounting, 863-385-5020.